Hello there, boys and girls. Adam Nicholas here for WhatCulture Wrestling.
Michael Sidgwick also reporting for WhatCulture Wrestling.
And we have got all of your wrestling. Wilbourne's not here, man. It's all going to pot. We've got your wrestling news, though, as always. And we've got a bunch of stories, starting off with Triple H replying to comments that Tommaso Ciampa made regarding the main roster.
WWE's product officially becomes a dog's dinner.
Bayley has set a brand new record in the women's division.
Le Champion lays down an intriguing challenge.
A challenge, I like that, very good. But first of all, another guy who's top of his game, one of your favourites, I know, Randy Orton will go and lead with today, because unfortunately, Randy Orton could potentially be injured. He was doing a house show the other night, and unfortunately, it seems that we're in the middle of going to do an RKO in a match with AJ Styles. He's gone up to do it, hasn't landed, but come back down, landed awkwardly, and could potentially have chucked out his knee. This isn't good. Referee threw up the X, as they do in the matches, and it's been called off. No words yet on officially whether it's like a long-term injury or anything like that. Could just be a precaution of taking him out, but he couldn't finish the match, and it did have to get called off, Michael Sidgwick. Not great stuff.
It's not great, but if you look on the bright side of it, Randy Orton is so established at this point that if anything, and hopefully it's not serious, but if he does suffer an injury that puts him on the shelf for a couple of months at least, he could easily come back with one move, and I think we know what that move is called, and just instantly reignite his heat. And I think some people, was it? I forget. I think he could instantly reignite his heat. They could resume that program quite easily. It would be a shame for him to miss WrestleMania season, because I think it's high time for Randy Orton to do something really interesting at Mania. I don't know what that is yet, but I think a really good Mania performance on the big stage and a really absorbent feud could arrest the narrative that he's a little bit boring.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And I mean, obviously, the big deal here, of course, has been if it's something like a ruptured ACL or something, that could potentially be a long-termer. We don't want to see that happen. Hopefully, we get Randy Orton back fully fit and back on the main roster, kicking ass as he usually does, and taking names with the RKO, my friend.
Oh, that's what it was.
There you go.
That's what it was.
There it is. Landed that one. Lovely. What we got next?
Next up, right, I don't know if this is going to make it to television. All of my instincts and knowledge of Vince McMahon all but confirms that it is, but advertised for an upcoming house show is...
Come on, deep breaths.
Is...
You can do it.
The stipulation between Roman Reigns and King Corbin is a loser eats dog food match. So yeah, it's a literal dog's dinner at this point. Adam Nicholas, I would credit you with being an intelligent guy.
You like dog food.
With being an intelligent guy.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, are you aware at this point that Roman Reigns is a dog?
Well, I haven't quite. I'm getting there. The gist is starting to come around. They haven't been too obvious with it. There's been a few subtle hints towards it. Yes, of course, well, he's the big dog, not just a dog. The big dog, Michael.
Just if any of them had anything about them, Roman Reigns could just combat all of this heat generation that Baron Corbin is trying to do by simply turning around and saying to him, like, Baz, I'm not actually a dog, mate.
Yeah, mate, I've got something to tell you here.
Like, this isn't offending me as a dog. Like, I'm not actually a dog.
Yeah. Really not my cup of tea, this.
I understand that my nickname is the big dog, but it doesn't really upset me that you're making me eat dog food or like saying that I'm not as big a dog as I used to be. So the plot twist here is that
you to know.
I never, in fact, was a dog to begin with. So yeah, the sooner this bollocks is over and done with, and we can get Roman Reigns, serious main event player who has done so well despite the terrible booking. I'm looking at his sequences with Keith Lee at Survivor Series, even his sequences with Baron Corbin himself at Fastlane earlier this year. When they give him something great to do, or even if they don't, he can extract greatness from it. Get rid of the dog food. He's not a dog. You shouldn't care.
Pretty much. The one thing you got to hope here is that this is happening on a house show.
Yes.
Please, whoever is going to the house show, which is at Cape Girardeau in Missouri, please do not buy tickets for this thing, because if it's a raging success, then undoubtedly that means we're going to see it probably on WWE TV. Let's be honest. If Vince goes, dog food draws, big fans of that.
I understand that there are some idiots out there. I'd like to think that the guys in the comment section are not among them. There's some evidence, but not among them, right? If you're going to this house show and you hear some people going, yay, he's eating some dog food, can you please just counteract those cheers by going, boo, boo, don't want to see this, or just remaining silent.
Silence, I was about to say.
Remain silent.
Because Vince will go, hey, we got a reaction there. We got a reaction to booing the dog food. Get it on TV. Indeed. Get a sponsorship deal. Indeed. Let's move swiftly away from dog food and talk about the real dog's dinner in WWE. Triple H, of course. I mean, let's be honest. The main man himself, the top boy, as he'll tell you himself. He's been talking with Corey Graves on After the Bell, the new podcast, which he does.
Forgot about it already,
because it's an afterthought and After the Bell. Triple H basically commenting regarding Tommaso Ciampa's comments. Now, we've already seen Ciampa basically saying that if he was asked to go to the main roster, he would retire, basically, is what he said, or he would go into coaching because he doesn't really feel like it would fit with his personal situation. Obviously, not very long back from a neck injury, and the schedule is a lot more intense than it would be on NXT. Triple H has been talking with Graves about this, and here are his comments, Michael Sidgwick. He says, I think there's a part of Ciampa that comes down to wear and tear and the physicality of it. In his current place, physically, could he handle the schedule? Could he handle the grind and the wear and tear and everything else of a full run on Raw or SmackDown? It's a different beast. He then went on to talking about if Ciampa were to go into coaching and such afterwards. He says, I tell you, when the time is right, he'll be a phenomenal coach. He'll be a phenomenal backstage producer. He goes to Evolve right now, and he's passing on that knowledge to those kids, and he's a producer and an agent there, and helps with their shows and does everything else. And then when they're producing the television event or the digital whatever it is that they're doing that night, he's helping with that too. He picks up the things that we're teaching him. Of course, he puts himself over there. And he's putting it someplace else. And that's going to translate long-term in his career too. Now, first of all, obviously the Ciampa stuff, it was interesting to hear that because, like, everybody, you assume they want to go to the main roster. I feel like that dynamic has changed drastically in the last few months, but also interesting to see that they're encouraging them, especially with Evolve, and getting them to go there and do a lot of these sort of backstage production roles and stuff.
Yeah, there's a conflict. Other than Finn Balor, who has the dream life of main roster money and the NXT schedule and the actual fact that he gets to be involved with a product that is incredible, there's a big conflict. I think it's long been said that a lot of the guys down in NXT, the ones who are pushed anyway, there's lots rotting away in that performance center, of course, really enjoy the relative freedom, not so much freedom because a lot of it is still heavily scripted, but they enjoy the fact that they're working for a brand that's really at the height of critical acclaim and enjoyment and buzz, and they get to wrestle like they want to wrestle. You look at the pace that someone like Oney Lorcan goes by, and you just think, well, like they're not getting regulated.
Nope.
But at the same time, when they go to the main roster, they don't get the critical acclaim, they lose a lot of buzz, they'll get like wished upon them that they could stay stranded in Saudi Arabia. That's how much people don't want to see them, but at the same time they get compensated for it far better. So there is that eternal conflict, and I think Tommaso Ciampa, looking at the physical state that he's in right now, probably just wants to, you know, live an easier life. And I think, realistically, if I'm being real, the whole thing's a coded, I'm not going to the main roster, it sucks. Because if you look at someone like Adam Cole, he's wrestling a schedule far more rigorous than anyone on the main roster.
Absolutely.
And if Ciampa, the irony is, if he hadn't lost that title by having a recurrence of that neck injury, he would be working harder than anyone on the main roster right now. Perhaps he's cognizant of that and thinks, yeah, I'm glad that wasn't me. But at the same time, yeah, he always seems like a very switched on, intelligent bloke. I'd love to see him be in a producer role in WWE because I think everyone in there is a little bit too old.
Yeah, they need to possibly get someone who's more of this generation,
Yes.
kind of bring the nice blend between back in the 90s,
Yes.
as they would say, and right now.
Indeed, it's not a coincidence that someone like Shawn Michaels and Triple H are producing the best matches
Absolutely.
on that company.
Couldn't agree more. Well, fingers crossed Ciampa gets to stay in NXT. I don't want to see him go anywhere as of right now. It's interesting though, if he does become NXT champion, how much that role could change for him, because if he was the champ, essentially he'd have to do what Adam Cole was doing, as you said.
I mean, I'm thinking he's thinking, right, win it at Portland in February and then do everything I can to lose it by October.
Yeah,
so I don't have to do
get
that.
shot of it as
Don't
fast
have
as
to do that
possible.
Survivor Series shift. No one should have to do what Adam Cole did, in my opinion.
No.
Work them to the bone, the injured bone.
Injured bone, but he's still alive and he's still kicking around. What more can you ask for? I was going to say from a baby to a Bayley, but it's not my story yet. I think it's your story next, if I'm not mistaken.
Indeed, this is a total masterstroke. Now, at Dominion last year, well, it's not last year now. By the time, you know, basically it's last year,
Yes,
it's 2018,
it's pretty much there, yeah.
At Dominion, after losing in a flash pinfall scenario to Kazuchika Okada, Chris Jericho brutalized Hiroshi Tanahashi. That formed the basis for their upcoming match at Wrestle Kingdom on January 5th. Now, because it was a one-shot angle, they've kind of relied on the respective star powers of each performer to drive this. A few vignettes here and there via a challenge, but it wasn't that hot a match.
Yeah.
And they've heated this match up to the point that it's by far, in my opinion, the most absorbing prospect on that card. Basically, Chris Jericho, and we don't know the ins and outs on this, clearly it's got some approval somewhere because the words AEW have appeared on NJPW's Twitter account and in New Japan Canon. But Le Champion has laid down the challenge to have Hiroshi Tanahashi in the event of Tanahashi beating him at Wrestle Kingdom. He will earn a shot at the AEW World Championship. Now, a lot of people are going crazy about the prospect of potential interpromotion of Hiroshi Tanahashi appearing on AEW Dynamite to fulfill this challenge. In my opinion, it's just a very clever way of tweaking the drama, and Jericho is set to go over. But at the same time, there's always the thought that Tanahashi has been built for years as the god of that Tokyo Dome. It took Kazuchika Okada years to usurp him in that role. He's done one job, to my knowledge, since. Maybe one or two, but regardless, he's firmly established as a genuine immortal on that stage. So it's an incredibly captivating clash. We don't know whether this symbolises or represents the start of a working relationship between the two, but wouldn't it be just magic if after everything he's done, Chris Jericho has managed to bridge that divide?
Put the two together. Well, that's the thing we should state, is that at the moment, despite the fact that this is so intriguing, because as you say, you've got the rich history of the Ace in the Tokyo Dome, you've got Jericho still undefeated in All Elite Wrestling, at the top of his game, the champion, no less. But technically, no, there are no plans at the moment for that match to happen in AEW. Yes, they're flirting with the idea, and of course, New Japan are promoting it, so you'd kind of hope there's going to be some kind of tie in there, or certainly a suggestion that a conversation is going to happen. But as it stands right this second, no deal is currently in place.
The captivating thing for me is that if you look at the subtext of the situation, a conversation already has to have happened. Like, they couldn't formalise that stipulation. Even if Chris Jericho knew he was going over, it's not as if he's going to go rogue and just say, right, well, if I'm going over anyway, I can just add the stipulation in, because it ultimately won't matter. A conversation must have taken place between AEW and New Japan for this to happen. Maybe they're going to look at the reaction to said conversation to maybe make a plan going forward. I'd love to see it.
Like a gentleman's agreement, potentially, just until we figure out whether or not there's enough interest maybe for that to be such a cross. Surely there is, though. Surely.
There's been a conversation. There must have been a conversation. Just think of the dream matches. Orange Cassidy versus Minoru Suzuki.
Oh, honestly,
I'd love to see that.
Well, actually, it's funny you mention this. If you hold on, there's a lovely Twitter question regarding just this very thing. So we won't want to tread on the toes, but let's go back to everyone's favourite product, WWE, especially Michael Scissors at this point, and talk about Bayley. She has actually managed to achieve a big milestone in the women's division, although it's always interesting how they find a new thing just because they want to post about. It's a weird one, this. Technically, Bayley is now the longest reigning combined SmackDown Women's Champion. It's weird that we're putting that in as a sentence, but I guess it's technically a thing. She surpassed Becky Lynch, who was on 216 days for her 2 runs. Well, Bayley is now on, technically today it'll be 220 or 219, depending on where you are in the world. And she is now the longest technical reigning combined champion. Her first run, of course, was back with 140 days she got, and now we are currently on 79 and counting, or whatever, depending again on wherever you are. WWE do love telling us about things where they just well, I don't know if you've noticed this, but if you just take them numbers and chuck them in with these numbers, we make this thing, and this sounds kind of good. This is nice though, I guess, in the long term. Is it?
I'll tell you what, I could get any, if you're watching this, you're going to be a committed pro wrestling fan, okay? I'll take any single one of you, and you can do it in the comments if you want, but I don't know that you're using Google to arrive at this conclusion. I could pluck any one of you, bang, out the comment section, face to face, right here, and say, look, Gary, I need you to tell me something, Gary. Start from the date of her first reign, tell me for how long each reign lasted, who she defeated to win each championship. You've got 1 minute, go. Gary is clueless. Gary's got no idea how to respond to this question because it's a meaningless figure that has no impression on me whatsoever. Let's get to the questions. Couldn't care less.
There you go, Harris first. Yeah, who gives a monkeys about anything? Go on, let's do Twitter questions. This one is the one you're going to enjoy. Thank you, as always, for your Twitter questions. You can send us to them at WhatCulture WWE. The first one today comes from Daniel Navarro, who says, thank you for your question, Daniel. He says, with the stipulation added to the Jericho and Tanahashi match, it made me think of a few matches for a potential supercard show. What are 3 matches that you would want to see?
Well, cheap plug, I've written previously an article on WhatCulture.com entitled 10 Perfect Matches for the AEW New Japan Supercard. Chief among them, for me, because I love the man so much, I'm representing Orange Cassidy versus Minoru Suzuki.
I love that, I didn't know where. I was thinking, who's Dutch on New Japan's roster?
I just can't think of a better dynamic between the guy who's the hardest and who's got the least amount of patience for bollocks versus the chief high art practitioner of bollocks, Orange Cassidy. I just think there's a great match in Beyond Wrestling between David Starr and Orange Cassidy, where David Starr plays the role of a guy who could not care less about his shtick and just wants to kill him. And I think that'd be a beautiful kind of version of that match. What about you?
I think it's funny, just before I say it, that match in particular, because the amount of people who don't like silly, daft wrestling, and then for it to be brought into that sphere, I think I'd like to see that, very much so. For me, it'd be hard to move past big. I always think of big names. I think of Okada, and I think, who would I want to see him wrestling in AEW? Oh, you know what it is?
Pac for me.
Do you think Pac? See, I don't know, because, I mean, obviously I would take that match 100%. I think a guy I'd really like to see, though, I'd like to see what someone like a Scorpio Sky could do against an Okada. Someone we've seen, there's obviously big name matches there, but Scorpio Sky potentially could be one of the guys for the future. I'd like to see what he could do mixing up. That is, of course, only one of 1,000 different combinations we could have.
I've got two more.
Go on,
I just like
you need three, so.
I think I just like to be a ghoul and see Runs getting bullied. I'd love to see Tomohiro Ishii versus Darby Allin.
Nice.
Because that is a very, very ghoulish prospect. I'd love to see Jon Moxley versus Hiroshi Tanahashi, to see the Mox wrap that battered bicep in barbed wire. Imagine like the selling.
Even Mox, I know you've already nicked it, but even Mox Suzuki would be a match of like ungodly proportions of just pure nastiness. I mean, the pairing between these two companies, it needs to happen.
Yeah,
because they're only both losing out if they don't do that.
Indeed,
sort of thing. Absolutely.
Exactly.
The other question for the day comes from David Burns. Thank you, David, who says...
David Byrne?
David Byrne.
Oh, yes, talking head.
No, he's not that lazy though, mate. He just wants to give you the question. He says, do you think that Bray Wyatt should beat Brock Lesnar, I already know the answer to this, to unify the titles and just have the WWE title and defend it on both brands, alternating between shows like during the first brand split?
This is another series of questions that I can only respond with utter nihilism, because we've seen a full-time wrestler this year across both brands hold the top title. I don't necessarily think Brock Lesnar's absence while holding the title has any kind of negative influence on the product. I think it's inherently negative as long as Vince McMahon is in charge.
Yeah, I'd be hard pressed to disagree. I know a lot of people don't like Brock not being on TV. I don't mind it, to be honest.
Nah.
I don't mind it so much, but also I think, I don't know, I kind of do like the division. Personally, I like the division, even though we don't get to see the other belts. I like the fact there's two champs. I like the fact there's two brands. And what else would you do when it came to brand warfare? The most important thing on the whole planet, where everything makes sense and storylines are still relevant. That seems like a nice place to end for the day. So I have been Adam Nicholas. As always, this has been Michael Sidgwick, and this was the news. And if you want more news like this, you can find it, first of all, you can find it at whatculture.com/WWE, or if you want more videos, of course, you can find them here right on YouTube. Follow WhatCulture on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. Follow either of us on Twitter if that's your kind of thing. Where can I find you, Michael Sidgwick?
I'm good on Twitter, at msidgwick.
There's your man, and he's good on Twitter too. You can find me on Twitter, not too bad on Twitter, at It's Adam Nicholas, and also, I've already said it, but you can follow us all on Twitter, WhatCultureWWE. Go on and do it. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you with the news.
Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Obviously don't forget to do that.
They always come. They always come. They got no choice, man. They got no choice. Look at them. They've already liked, shared and subscribed. Take it easy.